Well, Tom, you brought up, research and how the industry's mostly focused on that. Why are they so determined to just put everybody in a test tube, and the 2 or 3 that...
Science demands it. Science doesn't understand science. And where I'm going with that, somebody needs to, I'm going to actually let you record this.
Oh.
Because everybody in here might want it, and we might even post it somewhere. Okay? This is the only thing that we're going to videotape. So I'm going to make some notes because I'm going to forget shit because my brain just went 1,000 miles an hour on things I've been thinking about actually a lot over the past couple of weeks. So number 1, what is science? Number 2, there's a physical therapy world thing where they talk about everything needs to be evidence-based. Have you ever heard that?
Yes. That's where I want to go.
What is this? What is this? What is research? That's really the word that started all this conversation, right? There's a guy in Brazil who's apparently really popular. 4,000 followers. I follow an otter that has 300,000 followers. For somebody having 4,000 followers doesn't really seem like a big fucking deal to me. When a kind of a sort of a mammal that floats on its back, breaking shit open on its chest with a little rock, which is really brilliant, smarter than most trainers, has 300,000 followers. Okay? He says, to make it so nobody questions him, he says, you can't question science. I'm going to someday go down there and learn enough Portuguese to go, what is science, motherfucker? How do you say motherfucker in? Okay. That should be the first thing I learn if I'm going to pull this off, right? Because the first thing science isn't? It's part of the sentence I just said. Science is not lack of questioning. Science is only questioning. Science is the process of questioning. Do you think Einstein came up with his shit, which, by the way, we can't actually prove, not you and I, by not questioning the status quo of physics as interpreted at that point in time? Do you think that's how he came up with that shit? It's the year 1200, and any time before that, 1300, 1400, what's the only thing you can make a boat out of because it's the only thing that floats? What is it? They didn't have styrofoam boats and boys and girls. What is it?
Wood.
Wood. Thank you. Anybody make boats out of wood now or ships? They make it out of something that we know sinks, metal. But it turns out it's not what it's made out of. It turns out it's about water displacement. How do we know that? Because someone questioned it. And science didn't change. Science never changes. When someone says science changes all the time, bullshit. Humans become a little less stupid. But since we think we're the center of the universe, we assume everything around us changes. You understand the hypocrisy there? Because that's this. So what is science? Help me. Think. No more passive learning. No more help me. What is science?
Process of questioning.
So process is a key word here.
Observation.
Questioning is an important word here. What?
Observation.
Part of the process is observation.
You come up with hypothesis?
Hypothesis is the questioning. And a potential guesstimation. For those of you that guesstimation, that's really a word people use. It's an estimate. That's a guess. It's a guesstimation. Don't overstate your hypothesis. It's just a guess. Now, it's kind of supposed to be built on something. Hey, I wonder if. And it's not just a question.
Well, you have theories.
Yes, so you have theories that figure into this because you're going, man, let's see if.
Yeah.
And it's very different saying, I bet that this is the cause of this. It's very different than let's see if. Because one has already stacked the cards in a certain direction, egotistically. And when I say ego, I don't mean big head. I mean the ego wants to always be right. Whether it's a victim, I have such bad luck. Everything happens to me. That's ego shit.
Meant to be an absence of bias.
Yes.
An absence of bias.
It's supposed to be an absence of bias, and that's impossible, and here's why. Even if you take out the human bias, the scenario is always biased, because you cannot possibly in this world control all the variables. So it's always biased by the influence of the variables we didn't control. And not only is that true of, for example, an environment as big as the Earth, that we cannot control. You can control a lab, maybe, from temperature to humidity to whatever, and you cannot control Oklahoma weather. But let's take that to our world that we're trying to stay on track with here. I have all this research on joint forces. And this is really funny, is the comparison of things here. We're going to talk about joint forces and we're going to talk about open and closed chain. And all the joint force research is mostly concerned about shear, mostly concerned about what joint? Knee. And they talk about open chain versus closed chain. That somehow, these become equated. Here's at least two places where this all falls apart. One of them I mentioned yesterday. What was it? I think it's 3 actually. Notes to me, don't worry about it. Number one is they typically will say things like, we took, one specifically when I'm thinking about, who's co-authored by a guy named Andrews, who's a big, anybody from the southeast? No? Big sports medicine guy for decades. And this guy named Wilkes, who was a physical therapist who apparently worked with and under him for a while, and they did a lot of research together, and it's all in the American Journal of Sports Medicine, which is considered to be a relatively higher journal than some scrag like NSCA. And I know I just pissed off NSCA people, but the researchers consider that to be trash. And our industry considers it to be, woo! We just built the Empire State Building. It's only 4 stories, but it's fucking rocking. That's what we think that is. So joint forces, shear, they don't measure torque of resistance. And torque is resistance. Resistance is torque. What does that mean? That's where the resistance profile comes in. So for example, the research I was just talking about says we compared open chain to closed chain, leg extensions to squats, and there's the third problem. Squats aren't closed chain. So what they're even comparing isn't what they say. So right there, the whole thing is falling apart in terms of what they're blaming shit on. What they don't get is the way the forces are going through the limb is what's changed. Now that's funny that they're trying to see, do these things have 2 different forces, when the whole fucking point of the thing is 2 different forces. Sets of forces. So they don't know what closed chain is. Because squats ain't. They don't know what resistance is because they'll say, here's how we measured this. We took knees that were ACL deficient, which means probably what? Come on! Probably torn. We took 20 to make, because one of the variables we need to control is the load we're using. You can't use a 1,000-pound squat and a 10-pound leg extension and expect to come up with forces that are comparable, that can be compared. You follow me? So here's what they did to control the variable of forces. They used 25% of the person's body weight. Now that would be good if they actually did 25% of the person's body weight. Because here's what that means. You're doing a leg extension, you have a 200-pound person. What load did they use on the leg extension? 50 pounds. Now we're going to put 25% of the body weight on a squat. What's the load they used on the squat? Was it 250 or was it 50? Did they offload 150 pounds? If you didn't come up with that, you're not thinking, you're just reading. You can't read research and just read. That should have popped up in your mind right away. We put 25% of the body weight on each one of these exercises. How do you load a squat that starts with your body weight? Now, really, this started with the weight of the tibia and foot and tennis shoe also. But we're going to dismiss that, even though it might be 25 pounds in a bodybuilder because of his fucking calves and his retarded calf shoes he's got. Oh, remember those big rubber things that weigh about, you remember those, right?
Fanny pack.
Yeah. And his fanny pack? You know what fanny means in Australia, right? Okay, so don't say that.
Same as in Ireland.
Same as it does in Ireland? Okay. The point is that this research is on multiple levels invalid. Because if I put a 50-pound ankle weight, if I use an ankle weight on somebody, what's the profile? Where is it the heaviest? Where do they say the shearing forces are the worst? Well, come to find out, the only place they had resistance. Woo! That's a surprise. You mean the place where the quad had to work the hardest? Oh, here's another point. Do you follow me? I see clueless faces, and nobody's asking me, so that means everybody knows.
Well, what about the people? You're just talking about...
Finish this. You haven't proven to me you understand what the fuck I said here, and you want to go on to something else? Is that trying to be...
No.
Are you distracting me? Are you not letting me...
That's my game. Stop it.
As long as you set the rules beforehand that it's your game.
Well, all right.
That's the qualifying thing you have to do. So, we're not measuring torque, which means we're not identifying a profile. Where that does fall apart is on the research that actually uses an isokinetic dynamometer in static positions. Why does that matter? I'm not even going into it. Because we have to go into what isokinetics means and how when you have to hit a certain speed in order to generate an outcome on this thing, but you have to slow down to stop when you get to full extension, it always reads 0 when you stop. So how can I measure anything there? Well, we're doing it isometrically, Tom. Okay, good. And when I go to full extension, just like I did on his elbow, I can't push on the machine anymore. So I can't even measure full extension isometrically. And the fact that this escapes researchers is embarrassing to research. But you know what the problem is? They don't understand mechanics. With all their PhDs in biomechanics, they don't get exercise. And if anybody out there actually understands this, that's awesome. And I'm obviously not talking about you, so don't get your fucking feelings hurt. Grow the fuck up and stop being a pussy. So it's not closed chain in the first place. Now that actually doesn't kill the research. Because the research is still, the statistics, the stats are still what they came up with. They're just they're blaming it on the wrong thing. So that doesn't kill the research. Here's another thing. Dude,